Is it going?
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
All right, we're good? Okay.
So it doesn't look obvious for her, you know? Now it's like it's not there.
Okay. What are the characteristics of a successful business major student?
I'd say most importantly, it's curiosity about business. I've had students who are business majors who, for some reason, don't know a lot about business and aren't really interested in business. The ones who do the best are the ones who, after declaring themselves a business major, follow the business news a bit or get interested in what businesses are doing, even if they're just following one business that maybe is their favorite. Say Apple, for example, is a fun business to follow. It's interesting to see what the CEO, Tim Cook, is doing. It's interesting to see what's been going on. Right now there's a lot of interesting things about tariffs and Apple because of, yeah. And so I would say it's the best students are the ones in business general are the ones who have great curiosity about business. They're not just looking at it as this is my major. They're looking at it as this is something I have a broad interest in, and they get involved in it, or at least they follow it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Tell us about a time you've helped a failing student succeed.
I typically have.
I was just about to say me.
I was gonna say.
All of us.
I typically have about 5 or 6 students in any given class who are failing. One thing that I do, certainly in my online classes, I always have, as you know, I ask for your phone numbers, but I do see you. In my online class, I ask for their phone numbers and I call those students, and I do follow up with them. I do want to know what's going on. Is there something that I can do to help? Is there something that's gotten in the way of their succeeding? In one of my online classes, for example, right now I have a student who's homeless and lives in a homeless shelter. That's not unusual for my students, that I have students in homeless shelters. But he's being kicked out of the homeless shelter because he's required to get some kind of work and he hasn't been able to find work yet. He attributes this to not having clothes for in order to interview. Okay, he says he doesn't have any proper clothes. So I hooked him up with an organization that provides free business work clothes to people, low-income people who are seeking jobs. They provide a few work outfits so that you can go on an interview. So very often students are failing because of some external circumstance that's happening to them, a family issue, a poverty issue, a homelessness issue, something like that. Sometimes it's even just a computer issue. So I try to make students very much aware of what's available to them. I had another student also in my online class. He was a returning student, and if you remember, in our First Things First module, I talked about academic amnesty and time amnesty. And he, I guess, had not read those things, and I wish that he had. He was doing very well in my class, but when he submitted his audit, the academic audit, I'm able to see your GPA, because when you snap a picture of your audit, usually people capture the GPA. So I was curious. He had a 1.02 GPA, very low. So I asked, why is your GPA so low? And he said, well, I attended school when I was 18, and this is a common story, where students may come to college at 18 and they're not quite ready or devoted enough or serious enough about the work, or they're not aware enough of the time commitment that it takes to be successful at college. He attempted 4 or 5 courses, failed them all, and now he was back 10 years later as a serious and more mature student who was working very hard and doing the work. And this is, like I said, a very common story. Young students, many of them are prepared for college. They know what they're getting themselves into. They're willing to do the work, but some are not. I made him aware of the academic, of the time amnesty program. And again, he was very, very grateful because he was on academic probation. He was going to be on academic probation for a long time, because if you fail 5 courses, and or if you get D's and F's in 5 courses, your GPA is going to be really low. It's very hard to bring it up from there. But now he's able to wipe out those bad courses, because that's what the amnesty program does. It says if you've been out of school for 3 years, you can erase those bad grades and start over. So now,
So it has to be at least 3 years?
I believe it's 3 years. And there are certain conditions for who qualifies.
Yeah.
But if you qualify, you can have withdrawals and bad grades erased and start again. And I've had this happen a number of times where I've had students who seem to be very good students with amazingly low GPAs, and it was always because they attended school when they were very young, and they didn't take it seriously, and they didn't do the work, and they failed. And they're thrilled to find out about this program that allows them to start again, and then they become 4.0 students.
Yeah.
And they end up in Phi Theta Kappa. They get scholarships. They do great.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay. Why should you choose a business general major over other majors?
It's the best major. You should definitely choose. Oh, whoa, I'm sorry. Oh, that's only your Red Bull and not your phone. Good. You should definitely choose a business major. In the first place, it's because business is all around. You cannot avoid business. Everything that you do in the world is somehow related to business. Money. There's an expression: follow the money. Okay, to find out why things happen or why people behave the way that they do. No matter what you do in life, even if you are a teacher and you think, well, business isn't important to me. I mean, let's say that you're a 3rd grade teacher. Business is still important. It's important to know how corporations run, what guides them, what makes them make the kinds of decisions that they do. Why is your school run the way that it is? How does the budgeting process work? What's the impact of raising salaries? What's the impact of increasing spending or decreasing spending? What's the impact of the economy on your students or on the success of the students? It's so important. I'm always shocked when I speak to people who don't have a business education, because it seems as though they're really missing such an important part of what drives our economy, what drives the politics, what drives the dynamics in our society, because it's business. Business is so essential to society, to everything. Yeah. And so I think that a business education is essential. If I would suggest that even somebody who had no interest in business should still take some business courses or minor in business, get some kind of business knowledge. It also, it can lead to jobs. I wonder sometimes about students who major purely in liberal arts type of majors, people who study things like sociology or anthropology. Sure, there are some jobs for people like that. Sure, you can get a job with that kind of degree, but I think it's a lot harder. The one piece of advice, though, that I would give to business majors is this. Our degree is a general major. Once you move on to a 4-year degree, 4-year school, you should concentrate in a specific area, and you should start to think, really in that junior year, what exactly do you want to do with that business major? Don't just say, oh, I'm just business and it's a general business major. Start thinking, what kind of position do you want? Do you want to work in purchasing? Do you want to work in finance? Obviously, if you want to be an accountant, you're going to have to get that accounting major. Think about what specialty area or what industry do you want to be in. Look for internship opportunities, get exposure, do research, know everything about it. Because I think that if you're just general business, it's harder to get a job than if you've prepared yourself for a specialty within business. But overall, I think majoring in business is a smart move for students.
And it's funny because people always say you need math because that's the universal language and you use it in everywhere in life. But I honestly never thought about business being in everyday life, but it is. It's everywhere. And you don't even think about it, but it is.
It's everywhere. Sometimes I hear people saying things, and and it shows that they don't understand the dynamics of business. For example, take minimum wages, for example. Now, I would agree, I think that the minimum wage in Pennsylvania, I think it's $7.25, is too low. Okay, I do think it should be higher. But there are people who will say right off the bat, I think the minimum wage should be $20 an hour. Okay, well, if you raise it to $20 an hour or $15 an hour, okay, people will say, well, that'll make everything better. Everybody will benefit. Well, will everybody benefit? Have you thought about the different stakeholders? Somebody with a business education is not going to take that at face value and say, well, yeah, wouldn't it be great? You know, life would be good if everybody earned more money. Somebody with a business education is going to say, how is that going to impact businesses? How will businesses be able to pay people that amount of money? Small businesses especially. What will they need to do? Will they cut hours? Maybe people will earn more, but they'll have less hours to work, and in the end they still end up with the same amount of money. They don't, still not enough. Will it put some businesses out of business? What is the impact? That's business thinking. I'm not saying that wages shouldn't go up, but a business person will think about all the implications of raising a minimum wage. Someone who isn't a business person will just say, oh yeah, well everybody should have, $20 an hour. Well then why not make, instead of 15, why not make it $30 an hour? Give everybody $50 an hour. You look at politics, right now we're going through an election, and there are people who are saying, well, let's make college free. Okay, maybe college could be free, but what will the effect of free college be? How will that impact other colleges? Colleges. If you make all public colleges free, for example, let's say that we make all the public colleges free. CCP becomes free. We'll say Bloomsburg becomes free. Westchester becomes free. All these colleges become free. What kind of an impact will that have? What will that do? So think about it. That'll put some colleges out of business, okay? And then what happens to the people who worked at those colleges? What becomes to those of those properties? What if it's free and everybody goes and everybody has a college degree? So should everybody go to college? And what about trade schools? Should trade schools be free? There's so much more to think about than just saying it sounds good, it should be free. And people who have a business mindset will look at it and say, well, it's complicated. Somebody who doesn't have a business mindset will say it's not complicated, just make it all free. That's a tough one. Nothing is free, by the way. How will you pay for free college? What's that going to do to taxpayers, right? Those are the kinds of things that somebody with a business education will think about. Somebody who doesn't have a business education, it might not occur to them.
Are the transfer opportunities better if you are in a business general major are the transfer opportunities better if you are in a business general major versus other majors?
I don't know a lot about other majors. I'm sure that they transfer. As CCP has long been known as a transfer institution. In other words, we get people prepared to transfer into four-year schools. We do have some programs that are considered AAS. AAS, that's an Applied Associate of Science, okay? And those degrees are meant to not transfer. That's a tough question. Certainly the business general degree is intended for transfer. In that way, it differs from, for example, our business leadership degree, which is meant to be more of a hands-on training for business leadership. If you finish a 2-year degree in business at CCP, it doesn't really prepare you to become a business person right away. It really doesn't. It's meant to give you the theoretical background that you need to enter a 4-year degree program at a transfer school. So I can't tell you for sure whether this is a better program than the others. Most of our degrees are intended for transfer. The ones that are labeled Applied Associates are not necessarily intended for transfer, although many of those do transfer into some programs. There just may not be as many opportunities.
And then last but not least, what learning experiences do a general major provide?
What learning experiences? Well, you get the great, foundation in business, and you get to clear that out of the way before you move on to your 4-year degree program. So you'll take your first 2 semesters of accounting. Fabulous. Even for students who hate accounting, learning about accounting is transformative. Do you know one of the greatest discoveries of all time is double entry bookkeeping? I'm not making that up.
Really?
It's one of the greatest discoveries of all time is double entry bookkeeping. And once you understand how that works and how money in and money out makes a difference, that you never look at money the same way again, even in your personal finances. Do you remember how I spoke to you about income statements and balance sheets? I didn't exactly call them that, but I talked about the difference between wealth and income. Remember that? I don't know if you were here. Okay? That's huge for people to learn because so many people don't understand that they're completely separate. They're completely different things. Wealth is more important than income, but you do need income in order to live, okay? In order to live from week to week, month to month, in order to get by. But in the end, what really matters is whether you've accumulated wealth, and income is not the same thing as wealth. And you'll learn about that in accounting, even on a personal level. But certainly understanding how accounting works in businesses is very, very important. Understanding that money, even just holding up money for a few days, makes a big difference as far as who gets the money. You learn about, in accounting, you'll learn about collecting money and how long it takes between the time that you bill somebody and the time that they pay you. That time that the money is floating there, whoever has the money is earning interest on the money. Whoever doesn't have the money is not getting the interest on the money. There's a big difference in that. So you learn about accounting. That's fascinating. You learn about just general business in your Management 121 class. So that's a great foundation into just a survey course of how the business world works. It covers all of it, so that's important. Management course focuses on managing people and how corporations are structured from a point of view of how they're managed. Who's in charge, how they're arranged, whether arranged by location, whether they're arranged according to product. That's all very important, is understanding how corporations are managed. Business law is really important too, and I think